So hello, this is Basil Kilani with TechSparks. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome Robert Iskander, the CEO of EduTone. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Basil. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's start by asking you about yourself. From a director in Sun Microsystems in the Middle East to being an entrepreneur, what instigated the idea of EduTone's creation?
It's a great question. Basically, when I was at Sun, I was running an entrepreneurial business unit to really look at starting to grow Sun Microsystem itself. So my first part was to set up an office in the Middle East, and we grew Sun by growing regionally in the Middle East. And later on, growing to the education as a vertical market. So I spent the last, I would say, 5 years at Sun growing the education vertical from $200 million a year company to $1 billion a year division of the company. And but then I got antsy and I started realizing the revolution wasn't happening fast enough. So the education market has been something I've always wanted to innovate and do something different. And so I decided, you know, what the heck, I'm going to go on my own and start my own company. So that's what I did in the year 2000.
So what new ideas, technologies, or trends do you see emerging in the educational schools industry?
Wow, that's a big question. So there's a lot of new trends, but the two most important trends is the move from print to digital. You know, all the textbooks are starting to become online content, online digital assets that people will consume in the course of learning and going to class or going to school. That's a big one. The second one that is really changing the way we deliver education as a school, the school is going virtual. The school is going online. So you're no longer going to have to attend a brick and mortar school and listen to a teacher talk to you all day long. Instead, it's becoming much more collaborative, much more personalized. We call it the flipped classroom, where you really are not going to sit down and listen to a lecture in the classroom, but you're going to prepare at home and listen to the lectures at home with all kinds of online video, online content, and come to the classroom, the luxury time, to interact and collaborate with your peers and with the teacher to make sure that you have absolute understanding of the topic that you're trying to learn. Those are the two big things.
Robert, while you were creating and building the company, were there any moments where you had to pivot the product in order to meet certain demand?
Absolutely, many times. Oh God, we probably pivoted at least 10 times in the last 12 years. So, you know, it's really an evolutionary process. When you start a company, you have a big vision and a big idea of problem you're trying to solve. And as you start doing it, you start learning, oh, I forgot about this, but this is better, and this is how you fine-tune it. So the concept of pivoting, maybe pivot is not necessarily the best word to explain it, but it's evolution. And as you start evolving your strategy and you start evolving your business model and your product, all of a sudden you will end up in a different place altogether from where you started or you thought you're going to start. So keep your mind open as an entrepreneur and as a startup executive, that you don't need to be constrained with the business plan and the business model you started with in day one. I believe in real-time evolution of products and businesses. And it may not be a good strategy, it may not be what they teach you in business school at Harvard, but it's really something that I would feel like it's really important to keep your eyes always on other things that are going on and be flexible and until you end up going to the right place and find that sweet spot in the market to turn it into a very successful business.
So EduTone offers its services on multi-platform, iPhone, iPad, Android, etc.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been easier if you just focus on maybe a couple? Is there any certain geographies that you built the platform based on those, or what was your strategy in that regard?
It's a great question. When you look at where we are today with mobility and the whole distributed computing and the cloud and social media, there really are three different platforms that are winning or the battle in terms of devices. You have the Android, you have the iOS, and you have the Windows 7 and Windows 8. Those are the three OSs. So when you come up with a product, and the product has to do with education, my focus is really education, not necessarily the platform. And I look at what could a student bring to the classroom, and it could bring in any of these devices. So the front end has to be completely device agnostic to answer that question. However, the back end, we build to the cloud. We host something once in the cloud, whether it's Amazon or Azure. We tend to be a very, very Switzerland when it comes to taking sides between Google and Microsoft and Apple. We build our product to work with all of that, again, because we're in the business of enabling education. And when you're enabling education, different schools have different preferences and different students have different preferences. So we want to make sure our platform does not necessarily become pigeonholed in one specific technology.
Robert, in one of your talks, you said that personalization is the key. How was this evident at EduTone, and how would this be leveraged as far as growth in any startup?
That's a great question. Basically, we enable personalization of education and leveraging technology to do that. So for example, a day in the life of a student, you log into a portal or you use your device to log in somewhere where the school has different sets of services that they want to offer you. They want to access a learning management system, you want to access a content channel or an ebook. But all of these things today are not really designed to be consumed by a school. They're designed to be consumed by a consumer. Like if you have an iPad, you go to an Apple store and download it. But it's not where the school tells you these are the things we want you to use. So we actually kind of in the middle between the school and the consumer. We allow the school to take all the services, all the content, all the applications, and put it in one sandbox, and then allow the students to access that sandbox with a unique set of access rights. And then they could personalize that solution to whatever they want it to be based on what classes they are enrolled in and based on what the teacher wants to teach. So we are actually enabling personalized learning, because we come in as the technology that enables that personalization to happen on the device.
So Robert, in terms of education delivery system, how do you think that's changing?
Oh, it's changing slowly, slower than I would like it to change, but it's definitely changing. When you look at education as the way that we teach today in the classroom, it really hasn't changed much in the past 200 years. It's still the teacher goes into a classroom, they take their student, they close the class, the door on the class, and they do whatever they want using some sort of a curriculum guideline. And it's really the teacher is at the center of the classroom, driving everything, using textbooks, using brick and mortar type of delivery. We've changed quite a bit from that model, where right now we have online delivery, virtual delivery. You could actually enroll in multiple schools at the same time and study from home. You don't even have to go to the class. But it's that role of that teacher in the middle that's changing, and it's really becoming more of a peer-to-peer learning process, where the school is more of a system you attend and you enroll in to get your degree and your certification at the end. It's not the only place you're going to go to learn. So schools are starting to outsource the actual teaching process and the courses to best-of-breed providers of these courses. So if you want to have, as a school to teach advanced placement history, for example, you may not have the money to hire the best teacher that teaches AP history. So you could go for a company that teaches AP history online and buy that class from them for your students. So outsourcing is starting to happen, and virtual delivery is starting to happen, and the whole public system is starting to break up into, in the United States we have something called charter schools, which are not clustered in school districts anymore. These are standalone schools that are run as non-for-profits, sometimes run by the parents, but it's actually looking at the quality of the schooling and looking at the system being more efficient as an overall system. So a lot of changes are happening. I could spend hours talking about it, but the one thing you could bet on is change.
Moving to EdPay, which is the e-commerce and payment arm of EduTone, how did this come about?
That's an interesting one. That looked like, to everybody from the outside, is like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing EdPay? It has nothing to do with what we're doing, which is integration of technology. At the end of the day, I believe in the consumerization of the enterprise. I'm sure you've heard that many, many times. And what that simply means is that in the past, you used to work as an employee in a company. The company had to give you all kinds of tools, including a computer and a PC and all kinds of instruments they used to get your job done. Today, companies are changing their philosophy. We call that consumerization, where they let you, as an employee, to go buy whatever you want as a consumer, and then they're going to allow you to bring that to work and leverage that in getting your job done. So they don't dictate to you what you use and what you should buy, et cetera, et cetera. We see that happening in schools. It's called the consumerization of the schools, whereby the schools will have to embrace the technology that the kids bring with them to school. We call that BYOD, bring your own device. And also we see that the schools are also decentralize the whole selection of content from these textbook publishers that the government told them you must use, to any type of consumer-oriented digital content that, as long as it matches what the school wants to teach. So supplemental content is growing, and the consumption of electronics with the money spent by the parents is growing. So the reason we set up EdPay is really because I believe the future will be about what the consumer will spend through the school to deliver the tools that the schools need. So the school will start outsourcing their IT infrastructure and the content and ask the parents to pay for it, but they need to guide the parents of what it is that the parents should be buying, so they're going to need a storefront. So EdPay is like an Amazon and a PayPal all in one, where the school has their brand in the storefront. They tell the teachers and the students, they tell the students and the parents what it is that they want them to buy, and they will facilitate the purchase on their online storefront using credit cards and ACH, and that's how the schools will co-fund some of these assets that they need the kids need to bring to school. So EdPay was designed to start actually leveraging that E2C marketplace, the education to consumer, and we needed to tap into that consumer spending, but with the brand of the school on the cover, not our brand, but the school has their brand on the storefront, and that's why we started EdPay.
So you mentioned supplemental content. Khan Academy, what do you think made them so successful?
Simplicity. The Khan Academy is such a simple concept of somebody just tutoring using an online tool and making everything easy to access. So that's number one, the simplicity of the delivery. And ubiquity, you could use any device, any browser to access it, and also the fact that it's free, it doesn't cost money. So the viral growth through social media, through the word of mouth, but it's a quality product for free. People couldn't believe that they could do that, and it's a game changer when you really think about what you can achieve as a learner by just watching some videos, how much knowledge you could capture. It works. So simplicity, freedom of choice in terms of cost is free. I think he got it just right. So it's definitely a very disruptive way of teaching.
Robert, you're an expert in business development and partnerships. What is the best way startups can form partnerships with big players that will leverage their businesses? In other words, how to get big companies to partner with small fish?
So I guess I'm not an expert. What makes me experienced in doing that is I used to also be on the other side in the big companies, looking for the small companies like me right now to partner with. Big companies have constraints. They have limited innovation. They're always looking for innovation coming in from the new guys that started the business in some garage somewhere, and they want to leverage that innovation to give them a competitive edge against their other big competitors. So they're always on the look. So they need you more than you need them. That's number one. So keep that in mind. Second of all is that it doesn't cost them anything in terms of R&D. Somebody else invested in that R&D, so they get to take advantage of your innovation. But we need them as well, right? We need the big companies because they have sales channel, they have distribution, they have muscle, they have brand. And so it's a win-win scenario. My suggestion would be when you approach a big company is don't salivate the first time they say hello. Realize that they need you as much as you need them, and it's a partnership. And it's a competitive world out there, and one of the things I would do is let them compete against each other. Don't just go talk to Intel. Talk to Intel and talk to Qualcomm and talk to other competitors, and do your shopping first before you decide who do you really want to go to partnership with, and make sure that they're as committed to you as you are to them, and that they're willing to invest and fund the project so they have skin in the game. They're not just wasting your time. So always play the poor man. I've got to get this funded. Don't let your investor fund the project. Let them fund the project. And I think that's when they realize that they've invested in you and they better make you successful, and that's how the relationship grows successfully.
So you also have experience in mergers and acquisitions. Studies have shown that 50% of acquisitions were unsuccessful. Why do you think is that?
And I'm actually good proof of that. I've bought, God knows, a lot of assets that were basically bad decisions. So, and I realized that what makes it work, I'm going to focus first on the success of an acquisition. When you acquire a company or an asset within a company, you want to make sure that the people you bring with it, and that's really the critical piece, is the people. It's not the product, it's the people, could fit in with your culture. They could you could leverage them as much as they could leverage you, that they will grow within your company, and you're going to keep them motivated and committed. Usually these acquisitions don't work because of people, not aligned, not culturally positioned well. The second thing is integration, is that don't buy and then worry about integration. Do your homework first, do your due diligence, and plan the integration before you actually press the button on the acquisition. And obviously that takes longer time to do that and takes a lot more planning, but if you were to plan the integration before the acquisition, it's got a better chances for success. And last, I would say, do your homework, do your due diligence, and make sure that you've unfolded some of these skeletons in the closet. There's always skeletons in the closet in anything you buy, and just make sure you spend time doing your due diligence up front.
So jumping to the Arab region, you served as a general manager of Sun Microsystems in MENA. How much potential do you see in that market?
Well, I think MENA is a great region to focus on. Right now, we actually are planning to expand in MENA. When you look at the percentage of, I'll take the education market first of all. MENA has an amazing amount of human capacity, people. And when you add countries like Egypt and Jordan and some of the North African countries and some of the other African countries as well, there's a huge population. And it depends if you include Turkey in MENA or not. That's another question. But Turkey is also another big booming economy. All of these countries have realized that they need to start building an infrastructure for teaching and learning in their country. Instead of losing the youth at a young age to go outside the country to learn elsewhere, why lose them while they're young? Keep them in the country by having a better educational infrastructure and prepare the workforce and keep them and to be motivated to stay in the region. So education is becoming a very important investment as an infrastructure in all the countries we talk to. Not only the Gulf countries that have more money than maybe some of the other North African countries, but it's everywhere. And it's all of a sudden becoming the hot topic, is what are you going to do about education? And so we see MENA as a phenomenal growth opportunity. There is money, there is capacity, there is need for what we're doing, and the most important, there's innovative people in there that once you bring in our blueprint for what we do and just basically start hiring that talent, I think it's just going to boom, and we will start exporting to the other regions outside MENA the content that was developed inside MENA.
So for EduTone, do you have any plans right now for the MENA region?
Absolutely. I was just there in Dubai and Qatar and Saudi Arabia in the last month. And we are looking for joint venture partners and distribution channel, and also content publishers that we would like to recruit, developing content in Arabic. So we're going to start, we're rebranding the company as the Global Grid for Learning in July-August timeframe. And we're going to create an Arabic grid for learning in the Middle East that starts basically building best-of-breed Arabic digital content for education. And so we will make an investment in that region, and we're looking for partners.
So how can Arab entrepreneurs and startups close the gap between what's happening in Arabia and, let's say, the Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I mean, there is a gap, and the gap is not really a big gap, but it's something where, when you look at, when we build products in Silicon Valley, we're approaching it as a global marketplace. We're starting with the US, but really every product we build today has got globalization in its design. When I start looking at the entrepreneurs that I've been talking to so far that are coming out of the MENA region, they're building products to serve MENA primarily. And so I think that constrains the growth and the capacity and the potential of this innovative idea. The other piece is I see a lot of imitations, and I see people imitating a business model that worked really well in the US, or somewhere around the world, and trying to do something like it but in Arabic, but only mainly to serve the Middle East region. And it's not such a bad idea, but I don't know if that's what I would say the most critical need for startups today. I really think that we have so much innovation in the region. If you look at all the startups in the US, many of them are Arabs that are founding these companies and starting it and exiting with, with a lot of money in their pocket, but that's because they thought global, and they actually lived in some of these Western countries for a few years before starting their company, so they understood the culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, and then went home and started it and maybe brought it back for an exit in the US. So my suggestion would be is think global, and don't just imitate the same innovative business models and technologies. Come up with something new. Come up with one thing above what's already out there. Don't just try to do the next Google, try to do the Google Plus.
So how can startups in the Arab region, and we've kind of touched up on the merger and acquisition subject, but in terms of the Arab startups, how can they strategize that in their business so that they could be looked at from the outside? You mentioned global. Again, those companies have potential in being acquired from global companies. How can then that would be put in the strategy for those startups?
I've been thinking about that, Bessa, for a long time, and I've been talking to some very nice technology providers in the region, out of Egypt and Jordan and elsewhere, and I've come to the conclusion that what's missing is that we don't really learn from some other people, and the culture I want to use is the Indians. The Indians have done a great job. They have a great kitchen for software development in India, but they don't market everything out of India. They actually decided to come out here in the US and start the company in the US, but keep the kitchen in India and leverage a US storefront for a product that was made in India, and the resources are in India. So you kept the jobs in India, but you're building an American or European product that has a global appeal. And I think we need to do more of that. And I see great products developed in Egypt, for example. I'm going to use that because I have a couple companies I'm thinking about right now when you ask me this question. And they have great products, but they don't have that global appeal. And they don't have the storefront to market themselves globally in the US. So the way I would have done it is set up a representative office or a small operation in the US, hire all your people in Egypt, keep the kitchen in Egypt, but make sure you market the product from the US. And that way you could grow a lot faster, and you are developing a global product with a global appeal with a very nice exit strategy in 2 to 3 years.
Going specifically into, you said, creating a representational office in the US.
Right, or Europe.
Or Europe.
Yeah.
We understand that sometimes there's problems with funding, there's problems with visas and whatnot. What do you think there's a quicker approach than the conventional way of going about doing that?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea and you want to set up a new company, it doesn't mean you have to live in the US to have that storefront. You could find yourself a partner, another fellow Arab who is already a US citizen or a European citizen who already is available to work for you. Hire him as the CEO, virtual CEO out of the US, or the American CEO or the European CEO, but you're running the company remotely from the region, from MENA. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to incubate the company in the region first. When you're ready, then you go and partner with a pre-existing US company that becomes your channel, and your basically make it a merger, make it a structured acquisition. So you could basically reverse merge into an existing American company with a product that's very innovative. So there's different ways to work around the visa issue. And by the way, visas are not a problem. I'm able to get anybody visas as long as you have a business in the US that's already structured with corporate structure, C Corp. It's really easy to get visas for employees to come back and forth.
So in closing, Robert, do you have any pointers or tips you would like to address to our entrepreneurs who want to make it big?
Yeah, first of all, the big tip is that don't think it's easy. I think a lot of entrepreneurs dream the American dream all the time. They only hear about the success stories and how a company got started, and within 6 to 12 months, it got acquired by Google for billions of dollars, and the founder became filthy rich overnight. You're probably hearing about the story of 1 out of a million startups that makes it to that level. The reality is that it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a very, very clearly well-defined business plan and innovative idea and great execution to get to that level. So don't believe all the marketing that you hear. It's not as easy as it seems. But on the other hand, I don't want you to give up on your idea. If you have a great idea, reach out to people who have experience. Listen carefully to people's advice, and don't think you're going to outsmart everybody else by an idea that nobody else thought about before. I think interviewing people, meeting with people before you start your business is a very wise thing, to do your homework. And last but not least is to leverage your network. Build a very extensive network of people that you keep at your reach at any time to help you out with advice, to help you out with capital, to help you out with innovative ideas, and maybe even partnerships, because your network is what's going to make you successful.
Robert, this was really insightful. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to hosting you again in the near future.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.